Picture a world where the wind howls like a living beast, where snow buries the hills in a silent, suffocating blanket, and where a lone figure trudges through the frozen wasteland, his breath visible in the icy air, his only companions a flock of sheep and a loyal dog. This is medieval England, a place where winter wasn't just a season, it was a war. Welcome to Boring History, where we dig into the forgotten corners of the past to uncover the lives of people who didn't just survive but thrived in the face of impossible odds. Today, we're stepping into the boots of a medieval shepherd, a man whose life was defined by solitude, resilience, and a deep bond with the land. His story isn't one of grand battles or towering castles. It's a tale of quiet ingenuity, of outsmarting the elements with nothing but wit, wool, and willpower. So grab a warm drink, settle in, and let's walk the snowy hills together to discover how these unsung heroes braved the merciless winters of the Middle Ages. It's the dead of winter around the year 1350, and the hills of northern England stretch out before us, vast and unforgiving, cloaked in frost. The sky is a heavy gray, pressing down on the landscape like a lid on a forgotten pot. Somewhere out there, a shepherd moves slowly, his figure almost swallowed by the swirling snow. He's not a knight, not a lord, not even a peasant tucked safely in a village hut. He's a wanderer, a nomad of the pastures, whose home is wherever his flock takes him. His life is one of constant motion, following the grazing paths of his sheep across hills that offer no mercy when the cold sets in. Winter, for him, isn't just a challenge. It's a relentless adversary. Every gust of wind, every flake of snow, every frozen puddle is a test of his ability to keep himself and his flock alive until spring. And yet, he does it. Year after year, generation after generation. Shepherds like him faced the worst that nature could throw at them and came out the other side. How? That's what we're here to explore. This shepherd, let's call him Edric, is a man carved by the land. His face is weathered, etched by wind and sun. His hands calloused from years of gripping a staff and shearing wool. His life is tied to his sheep in a way that's hard for us to grasp today. Those animals aren't just his livelihood. They're his shelter, his warmth, his food, even his fuel. Without them, he's nothing. With them, he's part of a delicate, symbiotic dance with nature. In the warmer months, Edric's days are spent guiding the flock to fresh pastures, shearing wool, and watching for predators. But when the temperature plummets and the snow piles high, his job becomes a matter of survival, not just for the sheep but for himself. The village peasant might huddle by a fire in a cramped but stable hut, surrounded by neighbors and a stockpile of grain. Edric, he's out here alone, with nothing but a makeshift shelter and the tools he carries. What kind of shelter are we talking about? Not much of one by our standards. Forget stone walls or a cozy fireplace. Edric's home is a squat, temporary structure slapped together from whatever the land provides. Turf, stones, heather, twigs. These huts are built to be mobile because Edric has to follow the flock, and the flock follows the grazing. He picks a spot shielded from the worst of the wind, maybe a dip in the hills or a gully where the snow doesn't pile too deep. The walls are made of sod or stones, stacked without mortar but fitted so tightly they're nearly airtight. The trick is in the craftsmanship. Every stone has to lock into place, every gap plugged with moss or earth to keep out the howling wind. The roof is a layer of turf or reeds, sometimes sprouting grass that makes the hut blend into the hillside like it's part of the earth itself. Inside, there's no room for luxury. The packed dirt floor might be covered with dried ferns or heather. There's a small hearth for a fire, a bed of twigs topped with sheepskin, and just enough space for Edric, his dog, and, on the worst nights, a few shivering lambs he's brought in to save from the cold. These huts aren't built for comfort. They're built to keep you alive. They're dark, smoky, and cramped, with air thick from the smell of damp earth, burning peat, and wet wool. But when Edric steps inside and closes the flap of hide that serves as a door, the world changes. The wind's scream fades to a dull roar. The cold that claws at his bones retreats just enough to let him breathe. It's like stepping into a cocoon, a tiny pocket of safety carved out of the wilderness. Idrik doesn't just build a shelter. He builds a sanctuary, a place where he can shut out the vast, hostile world and feel, for a moment, like he's part of the earth itself. And the genius of it? It's all temporary. Come spring, he'll move on, and the hut will melt back into the landscape, leaving barely a trace. This is survival architecture at its purest, simple, sustainable, and perfectly adapted to a life on the move. But the hut is only part of Idrik's story. His real secret is his flock. Those sheep aren't just animals he tends. They're his partners in the fight against winter. Sheep are tough creatures, their thick wool letting them shrug off the cold that would kill a less hardy animal. But they hate wind and snowstorms, and Idrik knows that keeping them safe means keeping himself warm too. He builds a sheepfold, a simple enclosure of stones, turf, or branches, often tucked into a natural shelter like a ravine or a forested hollow. Inside, the sheep huddle together, hundreds of bodies pressed tight, generating heat like a living furnace. On a frosty morning, you'd see steam rising from the flock, as if they're a single, breathing organism. The temperature inside that mass of wool and flesh can be degrees warmer than the air outside, and Idrik uses that to his advantage. He positions his hut or his sleeping spot right against against the sheepfold, leeward of the wind, letting the flock act as a living wall. Sometimes he even lies among them, surrounded by their warmth, their smell, their quiet bleating, a cocoon of life in the middle of a frozen wasteland. This isn't just about physical warmth. Idrik's bond with his flock is almost mystical. He knows every sheep, can pick out a single bleat from the chorus, can sense trouble from a shift in their breathing. At night, lying in the dark, he listens to the rustle of their bodies, the soft chewing of cud, and knows all is well. A sudden cry, a panicked shuffle, and he's on his feet, staff in hand, ready to face a wolf or a storm. That connection is his lifeline, but it comes with risks. A frightened flock can stampede, trampling him or his dog in their panic. Disease is another threat. Hoof rot or sheep pox can spread like wildfire in the close quarters of a winter sheepfold, and losing part of the flock could mean starvation. Yet, in this symbiotic system, the sheep give as much as they take. Their warmth, their wool, even their dung become tools for survival, creating a closed loop where nothing goes to waste. And that brings us to fire, the heart of Idrik's existence. In a world without electricity or central heating, fire is life itself. Keeping a flame alive in a snowy wasteland is a skill honed over generations. Idrik carries a flint, a steel striker, and tinder, maybe dried mushroom or charred cloth that can catch a spark. Finding fuel is the real challenge. In wooded areas, he scavenges dry branches or dead wood, but on the open hills, he has to get creative. Heather, gorse, thorny shrubs, anything that can burn is fair game. In summer, he cuts peat from bogs and dries it into briquettes that burn slow and steady. But his ultimate trick is sheep dung. Dried in the sun, it becomes a smokeless, reliable fuel that can keep a small fire going through the night. He builds his fire carefully, sheltering it with stones or digging a small pit to protect it from the wind. Sometimes, he uses a boulder as a heat reflector, directing every precious bit of warmth toward himself and his dog. It's not just about staying warm, it's about cooking a meager meal, warding off predators, and keeping the darkness at bay. That tiny flame is a reminder that he's not entirely alone. A small piece of the human world in a wilderness that doesn't care if he lives or dies. Fire is more than warmth. It's a ritual, a daily act of defiance against the cold. Idrik nurses the flame like a living thing, feeding it just enough to keep it alive without wasting fuel. At night, he banks it with ash, letting it smolder until dawn, ready to flare up again with a few puffs of breath. The fire's light pushes back the darkness. Its smoke keeps wolves and insects at bay, and its crackle is a sound of life in a silent world. It's a companion, almost as vital as his dog, and he treats it with the same respect. As he sits by its glow, the vast, starry sky above him feels a little less empty, the cold a little less cruel. But fire is only one piece of his survival puzzle, and to truly understand how Idrik endures, we need to look at the armor he wears, the food he eats, and the way he turns the land itself into an ally. Idrik's clothing is his first line of defense, a portable home in a world where shelter isn't guaranteed. The damp, biting wind of medieval England can cut through you like a knife, and staying dry is as crucial as staying warm. His wardrobe is built around wool, heavy, unwashed wool rich with lanolin, the natural fat that makes sheep's fleece almost waterproof. His most important garment is a long, hooded cloak called a pennula, cut from a single piece of dense felt or woven cloth. This isn't just a cloak, it's a fortress. Rain and snow slide off it like water off a duck's back, and the deep hood or cucullus shields his face and neck from the wind, creating a pocket of still, warm air where he can breathe without feeling his lungs freeze. Underneath, he layers up a linen shirt for breathability, 1 or 2 woolen tunics for warmth, and coarse pants or leg wrappings to protect his legs. His hands and feet, the most vulnerable parts, are wrapped in thick woolen mittens and socks. His shoes, simple leather clogs, are treated with animal fat or tar to repel water, and stuffed with straw to soak up sweat and keep his feet insulated. Every night, he dries the straw by the fire or replaces it, a simple habit that saves him from frostbite. This clothing isn't just functional. It's a testament to his self-sufficiency. Idrik shears the wool himself, and either he or his wife spins and weaves it into cloth. Every thread is a product of his labor, soaked in the smells of smoke, sweat, and sheep. It's heavy, scratchy, and far from fashionable, but it works. On the coldest nights, he can wrap himself in his cloak, stick his staff in the ground, and drape the fabric over it to form a makeshift tent, trapping his body heat inside. The colors, dark grays, browns, or greens, help him blend into the landscape, keeping him hidden from predators or bandits. His clothes aren't just protection. They're an extension of his identity, a symbol of his bond with the flock that sustains him. Food is another piece of this survival puzzle. Idrik's diet is a masterclass in minimalism, designed for portability and longevity. He can't rely on a village pantry, so he carries his food in a small leather bag, a survival kit that keeps him going for days. The cornerstone is bread, hard, dry barley or rye cakes that can last weeks without going stale. They're light, calorie-dense, and can be eaten on the move or softened with water or broth. Cheese is another staple, made from his own sheep's milk and hardened into salty, durable blocks that can keep for months. A chunk of cheese and a piece of bread is a full meal, packed with protein and fat to fuel long, cold days. If he's lucky, he might have a strip of dried or salted mutton, a rare treat that adds a burst of energy. For variety, he carries oatmeal or barley groats to make porridge over the fire, maybe flavored with wild onions or garlic he's foraged. Dried apples or berries, picked in summer, provide sweetness and vitamins. His drink is simple, water from a stream, maybe a flask of cheap ale or cider if he can get it. This diet isn't gourmet, but it's perfectly tuned to his needs, compact, nutritious, and able to sustain him without resupply. Foraging is another skill in his arsenal. Idrik knows his landscape like a book, and he can read its secrets. Under the snow, he might dig for edible roots or berries that have clung to bushes through the winter. He knows which streams stay ice-free, where to find a spring hidden in a forest hollow. This isn't just about filling his stomach, it's about staying healthy. A handful of wild garlic or a few dried berries can ward off sickness, and in a world without doctors, that's no small thing. His ability to turn a barren hillside into a pantry is a kind of alchemy born from years of observation and the wisdom of his ancestors. Fuel, too, requires that same ingenuity. On the open hills, where trees are scarce, Idrik scours the landscape for anything that can burn. Heather and gorse, those tough, thorny shrubs that dot the hills, are his go-to. Their dry stems catch fire quickly, giving a hot, fast flame. In summer, he plans ahead, cutting peat from bogs and stacking it to dry into briquettes that smolder through the night. But sheep dung is his masterpiece. In the warm months, he collects it, dries it in the sun, and stores it in piles. These kijijaki, are a shepherd's gold. Light, smokeless, and steady burning, perfect for cooking or warming a hut. This isn't just resourcefulness. It's a closed ecosystem where every part of the flock, from wool to waste, plays a role in keeping him alive. As Edric tends his fire, the landscape around him becomes more than a backdrop, it becomes a partner. His ability to read the land is what sets him apart, a skill that turns a hostile wilderness into a source of life. The hills of medieval England are a tapestry of signs and signals, and Edric knows every thread. A shift in the wind, a certain shape in the clouds, the way birds move across the sky. These are his weather forecasts, often more accurate than anything we have today. He can tell a storm is coming hours before it hits, giving him time to move his flock to a sheltered ravine or a forested hollow. He knows which hillsides catch the morning sun and stay warmest, which streams won't freeze, which patches of ground drain well enough to keep his sheep dry during a thaw. Every ravine, every rock, every clump of heather has a story to tell, and he listens. He chooses his winter pastures with care, favoring southern slopes that soak up what little sunlight there is. He looks for natural barriers, dense shrubs, stone ridges that can double as walls for his sheepfold. Even the plants underfoot are part of his toolkit. He knows where to find edible roots or berries buried under snow, where to dig for peat, where to cut dry heather for kindling. The landscape isn't his enemy. It's his ally, and he knows its secrets better than anyone. This knowledge isn't just practical, it's a mindset. Edric doesn't try to conquer nature like a castle builder, throwing up stone walls to shut it out. He works with it, weaving himself into its rhythms. His shelters use the earth's own materials. His flock's warmth becomes his warmth. His fire burns the land's own fuel. This is survival as collaboration, a dance with a partner that can kill you if you miss a step. And in that dance, his dog is his shadow, his second self, a creature as attuned to the land as he is. Shepherd dogs in medieval England, ancestors of modern collies or sheepdogs, are more than pets. They're workers, companions, lifelines. Edric's dog, let's call her Bryn, is tough and intelligent, bred to herd, guard, and survive in the same brutal conditions as her master. She can manage a flock better than two men, nipping at heels to keep stragglers in line, guiding the herd through fog or snow, barking at the first whiff of a wolf. In the dead of winter, when visibility drops to nothing, Bryn's senses, her nose, her ears, become Edric's eyes. A rustle in the dark, a faint scent on the wind, and she'll alert him to danger, whether it's a predator or a lamb straying into the snow. At night, Bryn sleeps close, her breathing body a living heater, a comfort in the cold. But the bond goes deeper than warmth. In the long, silent weeks of winter, when the only sounds are the wind and the sheep, Bryn is Edric's confidant. He talks to her, sharing thoughts he can't voice to anyone else. It's not just about staving off loneliness. It's about staying sane. Her loyal eyes, her quiet presence, are a tether to the world, keeping the vast emptiness from swallowing him whole. To lose Bryn would be a disaster, not just because of the work she does, but because she's family. Edric feeds her from his own meager rations, cares for her as he cares for his sheep, because he knows that without her, he's blind, deaf, and vulnerable. This bond is tested most during the lambing season, the crucible of Edric's year. Late winter to early spring is when new lambs are born, a time of hope and peril. The weather swings from thaws to sudden frosts, from rain to blinding snow, and newborn lambs, wet, weak, and barely able to stand, are at the mercy of it all. Edric becomes a midwife, a nursemaid, a guardian of fragile lives. He barely sleeps, patrolling the flock day and night, helping ewes through difficult births, making sure each lamb takes its first breath. The weakest ones, too cold or rejected by their mothers, he carries to his hut, warming them by the fire, wrapping them in rags, even feeding them milk from a horn if he can get it. His tiny shelter turns into a nursery, a battlefield where every life saved is a victory, every life lost a blow to his heart and his livelihood. He uses every trick he knows, rubbing them to stimulate breathing, tucking them against his own body for warmth, using the heat of the flock to shield them from the wind. His hands, rough from years of work, become gentle, precise, coaxing life into trembling bodies. It's exhausting, relentless work, but it's the core of his existence. Those lambs are the future of the flock, the future of his survival. In those moments, hunched over a trembling lamb in the smoky glow of his hut, Idrik is more than a shepherd. He's a steward of life, a quiet hero in a world that doesn't notice him. This fight for life brings us to the heart of Idrik's world. His ability to turn scarcity into abundance. Everything he needs, food, fuel, warmth, shelter, comes from the land, the flock, or his own cunning. His meals are a study in minimalism, designed to keep him strong without weighing him down. Those hard barley or rye cakes, baked to last weeks, are survival engineering, light, calorie-dense, resistant to mold. He chews them slowly or soaks them in water, making them last. His cheese, made from his own sheep's milk, is hardened into salty blocks that can keep for months. A chunk of cheese and a piece of bread is a full meal, rich in protein and fat. On good days, he might have dried mutton or lard, but more often, he supplements with wild garlic, onions, or berries preserved under snow. These aren't luxuries. They're medicine, keeping scurvy at bay when his body is pushed to its limits. His drink is simple, water from ice-free streams or a flask of ale sipped sparingly for warmth and morale. Every item in his bag is chosen for utility, allowing him to be autonomous for days, carrying everything he needs without needing to return to a village. Fuel is another area where his resourcefulness shines. On treeless hills, he scours the landscape for anything that can burn, dry heather, gorse, thorny shrubs. In summer, he cuts peat from bogs, stacking it to dry into briquettes that smolder through the night. But sheep dung is his masterpiece. Collected and dried in the sun, these briquettes are light, smokeless, and steady burning, perfect for cooking or warming his hut. It's a closed ecosystem where every part of the flock, wool, milk, meat, waste, plays a role in his survival. Idrik builds his fires with care, sheltering them in pits or stone rings, using boulders to reflect heat. At night, he banks the embers with ash, letting them smolder until dawn, saving fuel and time. The fire's light pushes back the darkness. Its smoke repels wolves and insects, and its crackle is a sound of life in a silent world. It's a ritual, a daily defiance of the cold, a companion as vital as Bryn. But the greatest challenge isn't cold or hunger, it's solitude. Idrik spends weeks, sometimes months, alone with his flock and his dog, far from the chatter of the village. That kind of isolation could break a person, but he turns it into strength. He listens to the land, hears its rhythms in the wind, the sheep, the creak of frozen grass. He sings old ballads, tells himself stories, filling the silence with his own voice. He talks to Bryn, to the stars, maybe to God, finding meaning in the act of speaking. His mind is sharp, noticing the smallest changes. A shift in a sheep's behavior, a new shadow on the hill, that could mean life or death. This solitude makes him self-reliant, forcing him to solve every problem with his own hands, his own mind. But it's also his vulnerability. An injury, a storm, a lost flock. Any misstep could be fatal when help is days away. He's cautious, prudent, trusting his instincts and Bryn above all else. Idrik's life is a balancing act, a constant negotiation between what he needs and what the world gives him. His hut, built from turf and stones, is a statement of adaptability, a home carved from the earth itself. His flock is a living shield, a source of warmth, food, clothing, and fuel. His fire is a symbol of control, a spark of hope in the endless night. His clothes, woven from his own sheep's wool, are a second skin, a barrier against the elements. His food, simple and portable, keeps him strong without tying him to a village. And Bryn, his dog, is his partner, his family, a reminder that he's not truly alone. Every element is part of a system where nothing is wasted, where every resource is stretched to its limit. In the lambing season, he gives everything, his strength, his warmth, his care, to his flock, knowing his survival is tied to theirs. Hunched over a trembling lamb in the smoky glow of his hut, he's a caretaker, a protector, a man who refuses to let the cold win. This is the art of survival, a quiet, uncelebrated wisdom that keeps life going in the harshest conditions. Edric doesn't have a castle or a fortune, just his wits, his hands, his heart. He reads the landscape like a scholar, finds resources where others see nothing, builds fires that burn through the night, shelters that stand against the wind, a life that endures when everything is stacked against him. His story is a lesson in adaptation, in finding harmony with a world that doesn't bend to your will. His dog, his flock, his fire, they're partners in a dance with nature, proof that survival is about connection, not conquest. The shepherd's life is a hymn to human endurance, to the people who face the impossible and find a way through. It's not about kings or battles. It's about the wanderers, the ones who keep going when the world turns cold. If Edric's journey through the frozen hills has stirred something in you, if you're hungry for more stories of forgotten heroes, then stick with boring history. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next tale. Drop a comment below. Tell us what you think of the shepherd's life, or what other hidden corners of history you want us to explore. His fire is still burning, and there are more paths to walk together. Until next time, stay warm, stay curious, and keep digging into the past with us.